So to monitor the amount of traffic through your bandwidth, amount of traffic going through a certain interface on your computer or on a server, the command to achieve this is iftop. Now, as soon as I press iftop, I firstly obviously have to install iftop. So you do sudo apt-get install iftop on your respective machines, and that's all you really have to do. So I notice the problem here is this error. This is the very first problem. So why this happens is because iftop tries to run on a promiscuous mode, means it tries to evade all the firewalls that are there on the network and on Ubuntu. So for it to actually not run in promiscuous mode, simple solution is I do sudo iftop. When I press enter, it opens the iftop. If you noticed here, it said listening to eth0. So this is my Ethernet interface, and it's actually not showing me anything because I'm not connected to the internet via Ethernet. So I press Q to quit, and now I need to actually make it show me the traffic through the wireless interface. So for that, first I need to see the name of my wireless interface, which is wireless LAN 0. This is the one that I'm currently using. It could be down or it could be up. In my case, it was down before, so I had to bring it up. Now what I do is I press manual iftop, and the shortcut for selecting your interface is actually -I right here, and I could actually look it up there. So the way I use this command is I go -I. As soon as I press this, and now it's listening to wireless LAN 0. Now what this screen is showing me is all the packets of data that are traveling through my wireless. So my IP address is not visible here, just give me a second. Is 6.104. I press this. This is my IP address contacting this IP address. You can see every single packet of data. This is very useful if you're the machine you're running is a server. So this shows the amount of data that's transmitted, total amount of data transmitted, total amount of data received, and this is the total amount of data. These show the rates. This is the data on individual packets. Earlier the data shown to me was in bits, now it's in bytes. My mistake. So yeah, now the other things that you can do with this is okay, I'm going to do this again, and I'm going to show you how these numbers change when I open a web page. Say I'm going to open my Facebook account. First I need to get into CyberRoam. Now I need you to look here. Press login. I'm going to enter Facebook. You can see these numbers will suddenly soar. Right. Now, as soon as I enter something which is a little heavy on the bandwidth, or say, you can see immediately the numbers start rising. I'll try and open a video. So yeah, that was a video, and that is the impact it has on the total amount of data that's transferred. It's almost immediately visible. Now another thing which is very useful with this is the filter command. Now how I use the filter command is, say I want to check the amount of data traveling between this IP address and another IP address. So say I want to check the data traveling between our IP and this IP .1.45. So I entered .1.45, and I must specify the DNS that this IP is using. When I press enter, it gives me the interface. Now as you can see here, I see absolutely nothing. That's because my device is not communicating with 1.45. So I press Ctrl Alt Tab, open a new terminal, and just observe what happens when I do. one last thing to note is that suppose I wanted to display the port names of the websites I'm visiting. So the command for this is again really simple. I'll do sudo iftop wireless LAN and then I'll press -p. So when I press enter, you'll see instead of random IP addresses for connections to triple IT Delhi network, I'm going to browse around a little on Facebook. So we'll see that that is also likely to show up, as you can see over here. Actually, I can open this link and examine it. Okay, now we're going to see the command iperf. Now what iperf does is, it actually tells you the amount of throughput between a server and a client that have a connection between them. So obviously iperf is a command that can run on a client mode, which is done by this command, or on a server mode. So the option for that is -s. Now before we actually go on trying this command, we need to understand the difference between throughput and bandwidth. Now bandwidth is essentially the potential amount of data that can be transferred on a connection, whereas throughput is the actual data, the size of data that is traveling through a connection. Now first you obviously have to install iperf, so you do sudo apt-get install iperf, and it's already installed on my system, so I needn't actually bother with that. So the problem with iperf is, whenever you run this command, is that there are so many firewalls and connections nowadays in Ubuntu and in CyberHome, whatever server you might be connecting to, that iperf is almost always never allowed to connect. Now I'm going to try client mode, and whenever I go into client mode, so first I'm going to do iperf. So these are the various modes that it works on, and there are other things you can specify like format, interval. So since iperf reports the amount of throughput or the bytes or data that is traveling through the connection, in specifying the interval would say the time period between the intervals. There are other commands that you can play with, but the most important thing is to know that these are the main commands. Now whenever I specify a client, since I'm a client, I actually have to specify a server that I will be connecting to measure the throughput between the client and the server. And -u specifies UDP mode, otherwise by default it actually tests the throughput through the TCP/IP protocol. So I'm going to quit this. Now I'm going to say iperf -client. Now I can actually say 192.168.1 or say 5, and as you can expect, it says connection refused. And I can try google.com, and so this was an immediate refusal by some firewall that is running between us and this IP address.